Alright, it's time for an update and forecast on the Mosquito Fire burning about 30 miles west of Lake Tahoe. And we do have some big updates to go over today, so we're going to look at where there was activity on this fire today. We're going to check out the new spot fire and where that's burning. We're also going to look at where we've gained some containment. And then most importantly, we're going to check out that weather forecast so that we can predict how this fire is likely to spread in the future. Now, a good place to start, though, is just looking at the map of the Mosquito Fire. To get our bearings here, that's Lake Tahoe, about 30 miles to the west. We have the Mosquito Fire, and then right around here, we have Forest Hill, Georgetown down here. Now, clearly, you can see where this fire was the most active throughout the day today, and that's where you see those red stars, so mostly on the eastern and northeastern sections of the fire. Big reason for that, all day long we had those southwesterly winds, and that's been acting to just push this fire towards the northeast. Now the big change, and I think number one thing we're going to be talking about through this video, is actually this hotspot down here on the western side of the fire. This was the new spot fire that quickly established and then grew rapidly throughout the day today. And the reason that's important is because that's very close to the largest amount of structures that we have. So we're going to take a good look at that. We can actually just start by doing that by looking at the satellite imagery. So on the left side, you can actually see that little black dot right there. Keep your eye right here. This is where the spot fire starts and then quickly grows to a few hundred acres. Now, of course, the other thing that you notice is how active the eastern side of this fire is. And you can actually tell the direction the direction the smoke is going is the direction the winds are blowing. So that's typically the direction the fire is going to be spreading. You notice that smoke being pushed towards the northeast. That's those southwesterly winds pushing the fire in that direction. Now, if we actually want to see some of the activity we had, clearly more active throughout the day today than what we have seen the last few days. Number one thing I noticed that's different, other than the much larger smoke plumes, is how clear the skies are, and that actually explains why we have the larger smoke plumes. So over the last few days, we had all that moisture moving in from Hurricane K that came into Southern California. And then with that moisture, and then we also had very weak winds, which allowed the smoke just to settle over the fire. And it was almost like a protective barrier for our fire. We had cooler temperatures, higher relative humidity, just calmer wildfire conditions overall. And we had a nice little break in the extreme fire activity. Now today, that moisture, as we knew that it would, moved off to Nevada. Skies cleared, and because of that, the inversion lifted faster over the Mosquito Fire today. Because of that, we had some warmer temperatures. Because of warmer temperatures, you get some of those gustier winds, especially in the canyons. And as we'll find out, that's actually the key thing that played a role in that spot fire starting. So this actually is the spot fire. Clearly, you can see very active behavior. And then what I'm hoping to see is if towards the end of this time lapse, it starts to calm down a little bit as we start to increase in moisture. And actually, it does look like that's exactly what ended up happening. So that's the first time I've seen that video. Great to see that the spot fire, while it is still active, looks to be responding to that increase in moisture that we're seeing right now. So before we let's look directly at that spot fire right now. So looking at this fire, again, we knew that there was going to be growth on this eastern side and this northeastern side because the southwesterly winds, expecting more of that growth tomorrow. This side over here was kind of the wild card. We saw a few red stars this morning that represented still some heat coming in that area, but it wasn't a part of the fire where we'd seen a lot of growth recently. So that was the wild card throughout the day today. Now as we click in here, keep an eye on that patch right there. That is our new spot fire, and we can compare that to the fire perimeter that we had this morning. So if we click in here, you notice that the fire perimeter shown with that white line right there stops on the southern edge of the Middle Fork American River. Now if I had the recent data or the recent imagery, we would show a spot fire right about there. And if we actually want to see a picture of what that spot fire looks like, I believe Watch Duty posted one. It looks exactly like that. So let's see if I can click it. So there's the Middle Fork American River, and then it jumped the river right here and then took up canyon, as you would expect a fire to do, and then pushes up towards Forest Hill Road, actually directly up against Forest Hill Road right here. But as of 7 p.m., there were no reports of the fire going past or north of Forest Hill Road. But that right there gives us a pretty good idea of what happened with that spot fire throughout the day today. So just coming back here, we can actually kind of look at the topography here. So what they were saying in the CAL FIRE update recently is you notice how steep this canyon is in here, and you notice that the Middle Fork American River kind of meanders through here. Now what CAL FIRE was saying is when it meanders, you get these little eddies of winds where the river is kind of turning. Some of those winds will turn in this canyon as well. So what ended up happening was some of those winds formed a little eddy in here, picked up one of these burning embers, tossed it over the Middle Fork American River, and then when you look at how how steep this topography is, and then even almost like a little canyon right there, the fire just rushed up this hill, and it did it fairly rapidly. You could just see how active that fire, and especially that spot fire, was throughout the day today as it rushes up that canyon right there. So, and then just one other thing about why fire goes uphill is if a fire is flat, a lot of that heat is just going straight up into the air. Now, if a fire is on a hill like this, as it's going up the hill, it's going to be preheating some of the fuels above it. So right when it gets to those fuels are just ready to combust, and then the fire starts burning those, and then it keeps preheating the fuels above that. Then, and by the time it gets there, it burns those, and that's why fires can go very rapidly uphill, and that was something that we saw on this fire throughout the day today. Now, the good news is based on that imagery and the most recent reports, doesn't look like it has gone north of Forest Hill Road as of right now. So, but overall, when it comes to the numbers on this fire, I believe that actually just increased right there. I'm going to load this again just to make sure. So you can see this imagery right here shows us where the growth was today. That orange color is where the growth was this morning, and then that red color is where the growth has been recently. There you can clearly see where that spot fire was that has reached up towards Forest Hill, and then you can also see all of that growth we had on the eastern and northeastern sections of this fire. Now let's finally look at those acres, because that literally just got updated again. Those are at 58,000 acres burned, and just looking at that fire perimeter map, we can see where the recent growth has been. The western section that had the spot fire, the eastern section, and the northeastern section that were fanned by those those southwesterly winds, and then 25% containment. I don't have an updated containment map. I believe this one was from about 5 to 7 hours ago, but you can see where some of that containment is, up to 25% now. So we've increased slightly from what this map is showing, but it still gives you a pretty general idea of where the greatest progress has been made. A lot of good progress on the southwestern side of this fire. Kind of makes sense because that's the area that the winds have been blowing away from, and then we also just have a lot of personnel on the ground doing some great work on this fire down there, and then also some on this northern section. The thing that I think helped us today in Forest Hill is you can see how many completed dozer lines they had around Forest Hill, shown with those black X's right in there. If they hadn't done all of this preparation, you can pretty much guarantee that the fire would have just kept going today, although it's hard to know exactly what's going on the ground, but as of the most recent reports, does look like it was contained by some of these completed dozer lines that they'd previously put in because they anticipated something like this happening. Pretty amazing work done right there. Now, when it comes to evacuation orders and warnings, with that new growth today, we do have some new evacuation orders and warnings. So So what you can do is click the link in the description of this video and go to Inciweb. And right here, this is the Inciweb website. You can go to the Placer County evacuation map and the El Dorado County evacuation map. And it looks a little something like this, where you're able to actually click in here, see if you are under a mandatory evacuation where you should leave the area immediately, or if you're under that evacuation warning where you should either leave or perhaps just get ready to leave. And then keep an eye on this map in the days ahead, because we should continue to see more growth on this, unfortunately, because we no longer have that moisture from Hurricane K helping us out. Now, again, as I mentioned, something else that's helping us out, all the personnel on this fire, we're now up to 3,052 personnel. That number just keeps going up every single time we check it. Now, finally, let's actually just get into the fire activity. I think that's all the updates on the fire. Now let's actually transition into the forecast part of the video. So clearly, we can see where the activity is right now, western side, eastern side. Something that I usually don't do in these videos because it can be a little misleading, because it always overestimates fire growth, but it is sometimes useful just to see where we're still picking up some heat around this fire, is to go to GOES detections, and that actually looks calmer than when I was looking at it a couple of hours ago. A couple of hours ago it was all bright red in here, and it looked like what the eastern side of the fire still looks like right now. But that does just give us a general idea of where the heat is being picked up by the satellites a lot more recently than these red dots show right here. Now, when we look at structures, this is the reason that that new hotspot today was such a concern. It's the western side of this fire that has the thousands of structures around it. Now, with that being said, the eastern side is also a concern because that's the area of the fire that is the most active, and then it's also where those winds have been blowing over the last few days. It seems like every single afternoon we get those southwesterly winds which push this fire northeast. Looks like that's still the case as of right now. Now, something else we can do is look at fire history, and that's where we're not getting, or at least it doesn't look like we're getting a whole lot of help. I'm going to turn structures off, that's a bit much. Doesn't look like we're getting a whole lot of help from the 2013 American fire. We were very curious to see if this fire took out enough of the fuels in the past that it would maybe stop the Mosquito Fire in its tracks, but it looks like that's enough time for a lot of those fuels to grow back, and we have seen some growth in that area recently. Now, the key spot on this northeastern section of the fire that I'm going to be watching closely is to see if this burning operation is able to keep the fire in this area. So this little sliver that comes out right here, it's also called a finger, that was actually deliberate burning by our personnel to clear out some of the fuels and create a little break around here, or I think they also call it a catcher's mitt, just to keep this fire inside right here. And then if we look at the containment map, we also, it cuts off, that's unfortunate, but there's a completed dozer line that goes way up to the north up here, even more than the firing operations where they cleared out some of those fuels. But just coming back here, it's going to be very interesting to see if the dozer line, which I believe goes all the way up here, is able to keep this fire kind of in check. So overall, that looks to be where the activity is right now. To figure out the overall forecast for the fire, we can check out the weather conditions. Best place to start is always just looking at what our weather conditions were throughout the day today. Looks like our maximum temperature was 76 degrees. This is a station in Forest Hill. And this isn't model data. This is an actual weather station on the ground. Max temp 76, so that's not all that warm. And then min relative humidity 33%. So our moisture was actually pretty good throughout the day today, especially, and temperatures were pretty good, especially compared to the heat wave where we had those triple-digit temperatures and relative humidity in the low teens. I think that's why, even though we had much more activity on the Mosquito Fire today than in previous days, it wasn't as bad as when we were in the peak of that heat wave and had those triple-digit temperatures where the fire, we definitely had a lot of activity today, but during the peak of that heat wave, it was the most active wildfire day that I'd say that we've seen this season. Now, just coming back here, looks like that relative humidity is increasing and increasing rapidly. We're almost up to 60% relative humidity, and that, I think, is the best news that we've seen on this fire. Main reason I say that might be a big statement, but the main reason I say that is because today really tested a lot of those containment lines, really tested the fire was much more active today than it was in the previous days. And we see how close it is to the Forest Hill community where we have lots of structures right around there. So to see that we're increasing in relative humidity and that relative humidity is just going to continue to increase overnight, that's going to significantly help calm this fire down over the next few hours and into tomorrow morning. That right there says relative humidity as high as 71% at 2 a.m. So that is definitely going to help calm this fire down. Now, when we look at tomorrow, though, that's where, again, relative humidity not looking all that bad tomorrow afternoon, most likely around 30 to 40%. Temperature-wise, actually even cooler, just in the high 60s to low 70s. And the big reason for that, actually, before I explain that temperature, let's just check out those wind gusts, because that's been the most important thing leading to that eastern growth. Same exact winds tomorrow, about 20 to 25 mile per hour wind gusts coming from the southwest. So again, if I had to predict any fire growth tomorrow, it would be towards the northeast, but especially down in this portion where we don't have any of that recent any fire history. So a lot of these fuels in here haven't burned in quite some time. Now, some good news and bad news. So I'm predicting the largest amount of growth right around here and right around here tomorrow. But you notice that's not where you're seeing the largest amount of those orange dots. So while I am predicting more growth tomorrow in those sections, it's a lot better than if we were predicting the largest amount of growth directly towards thousands of these structures right here. So clicking back here, key thing that I pointed out was that temperature-wise, pretty cool tomorrow, especially compared to those triple digits we had not too long ago. And it's actually true for the entire state of California. That blue color right there represents below average temperatures. And it looks like west of Lake Tahoe, where the Mosquito Fire is, we're about 10 degrees below average. And I clicked through this. It looks like that's going to be the case for the next 5 days, which is some great news there. And then if we look at the 6 to 10 day overall temperature forecast, that blue color represents below average temperatures expected. So while today was active, it wasn't the worst day that we have seen on this fire. With that being said, we are expecting another active day tomorrow, so we're going to have to keep a very close eye on it, especially that spot fire near Forest Hill, and then also that eastern side, which will be fanned by those southwesterly winds. But overall, the one thing that is going to be working in our favor is the fact that those temperatures will be remaining below average for what looks to be the next 10 days. So hopefully we can capitalize on some of that luck and really help control this fire as well as we can. Although, as we've seen throughout the season, sometimes Mother Nature just does whatever it wants. So I hope this video was helpful for anybody who's just joining the live stream and you don't want to go back and watch a 19-minute video. I'm going to record a 2-minute concise version of the Mosquito Fire and all the information we have there, and then also the forecast for tomorrow's growth, and you can just watch that. I'll probably have that posted within the next 15 to 20 minutes. So I hope this video was helpful. I'll see you all tomorrow morning for Wildfire Insider, and thanks for watching.